Welcome to the Voice of Putnam County Business. This is the podcast of the Putnam County Business Council, where we will be discussing all things related to Putnam County business climate and economic development in the county. We have Nick DeAndrea, General Manager of Park Ford. He is a director of the Putnam County Business Council, and also Nat Prentice of Prentice Investment Management, LLC. Nat is also the president of the Putnam County Business Council and also president of the Cold Spring Chamber of Commerce. We will welcome our host right after a brief message from our sponsor.
When Country Willow Furniture found people staying at home instead of furnishing their homes during the pandemic, the store worried about the loans that fueled their dramatic growth. But Tompkins Bank knew that solid relationships, like solid furniture, last far into the future. The value of a bank in your corner, the values of a bygone era. Tompkins gives you both, and the best banking relationship you'll ever have. Tompkins, your bank of choice. Find out more at tompkinsbank.com.
Welcome back once again to the Voice of Putnam County Business. Nat, glad to have you by my side.
Nick, without you, it wouldn't be any fun.
What we got for us here today?
And we hope to have him a month or so ago, but we got him now. We're not letting him go. The door is locked. We have New York State Assemblyman Matt Slater, who is the assemblyman from the 94th Assembly District.
Fighting 94th.
The Fighting 94th.
I love that.
And Matt, you should make sure that all of our listeners know exactly what's in the 94th.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Well, first off, thanks for having me today. I appreciate the welcome from Parker here, who hasn't left my side since I walked in.
But yeah, Parker's going to be a factor from this point on.
The Fighting 94th. So that's 80% of Putnam County. So everything except for Phillipstown. Then you come south into Westchester, and I have most of Yorktown and all of Somers. And so that's the Fighting 94th. Pretty compact. It's a great district. All the communities are very, very similar, but they're all unique in their own way. And I do my best to get around to each and every one of them. So it's a lot of time on the road, but I really enjoy it. It's an honor to serve in the state assembly. Honor to walk through the halls that people like Teddy Roosevelt and FDR walked through, and George Pataki, a Putnam County resident himself. And so, to be able to be there and partake in state government on that level and represent this great area, it's an honor.
But you used to have a really good job.
I did have a great job.
Tell us why you decided that you wanted to be at the state level rather than at the county level or the town level.
Yeah. So previously I was supervisor in the town of Yorktown. I had a great 8-mile radius. I literally lived in this little rectangle, right, Nick? Nick knows it well, since we both grew up there.
And how long did you serve in that position?
3 years. I was there for 3 years through COVID. So if you count the COVID years, it's more like 12. That's how we count COVID. Yeah. So. But yeah, so I was a supervisor there, and then our assemblyman at the time, his name you may know is Kevin Byrne. He decided to run for Putnam County executive and become Putnam County executive. So vacated the assembly seat that represented my community and all of our community here in the 94th, and I just felt that I could provide a very strong voice for the Hudson Valley and understanding and being on the receiving end as a local town official, all the things that Albany does and all the things that Albany pushes down. I thought I could bring that experience to the table and make sure that we're defending the Hudson Valley and our local communities and making sure that we try to keep it an affordable place, a safe place, and a great place to live, work, and raise a family.
I'm going to break protocol and I never speak on our podcast.
This is our mate here, Jennifer Marr speaking.
This man here, literally the best supervisor that I have ever witnessed in all that I have done in watching economic development. And from that aspect, he brought in more industry, and industry is a big word, during COVID than I think all of Putnam County put together, and probably even Westchester. Like, that's how focused he was. So I'm gonna shut up now.
Yeah,
Big, huge Matt Slater fan.
Thank you.
And we're blessed to have you in Putnam
team.
County.
It took a team, and I had a great town board and great department heads, and we definitely pushed the envelope in a lot of ways. We were very aggressive, but I said that coming in when I was when I first ran for town supervisor. This was I was going to be a pro-business town supervisor. pro-development town supervisor, recognizing that we have to expand our commercial tax base, which only helps property taxpayers be able to afford to live there. And we got off to a great start, and then COVID hit, and but we pushed through and did some pretty innovative things.
Right. Matt, I think your perspective from representing the other side of the state and having to deal with the things that the state says we're going to push on down.
Yeah.
But does the state push mostly to the county and then the county pushes to the town, or does it go straight to the town?
Depends on what it is,
Yeah.
and depends on what issue you're talking about. But they kind of do both, depending on really from a social services standpoint, from a health department standpoint, that's going to go straight to your county government. And they're asking our county governments to do a heck of a lot more with a heck of a lot less.
Yeah.
And then they do more on local governments. Around here, we deal with a lot of environmental mandates because we live in the New York City watershed. And so there's a lot of restrictions involved in that. And if you talk to people involved in economic development, and you see the hurdles they have to go through to get their projects done, and the additional vetting that has to be done because of those environmental standards, that's just another example that a lot of our municipalities are dealing with right now, called MS4, and it's a massive mandate that I'll be meeting with the East of Hudson Coalition, which I used to be a member of as the town supervisor, and that mandate is pretty expensive. Pretty expensive.
All right, so one of the things that I notice that you do very well is, one, you completely understand the issues that the people in this county and Northern Westchester are dealing with, and you portray that to the assembly constantly.
Try.
And you let people know. I mean, I'm constantly on your Instagram seeing what you're talking about and what you're fighting for, and it's everything that we need. So I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And you growing up in Yorktown, living in Yorktown, you understand it. You see it every day. You're driving our roads. You're dealing with some of the vacant businesses and stuff like that. So you get it. And that's what we're here for, right? That's what we do is the Putnam County Business Council.
Right.
We're trying to make sure that this area stays vibrant.
Right.
So, I mean, the things that you have to battle are not small things.
No.
I mean, they're monstrous, and like you mentioned, the dollars that are getting pulled from our county to support other things is big dollars. Huge
dollars. And one of the things that I went into the assembly focus on is transportation. And transportation is a major issue in Putnam County and the Hudson Valley. And if you look at our road structure here in the 94th, most of our main arteries, all of our main arteries, are state roads, which means our local governments cannot maintain them, pave them, fix them. It's up to the state government. In fact, if you look at the report that was released last year, it was the annual paving report. You wouldn't be able to see it because they actually hide it from the public because of how bad it is. But it actually ranks our region as the worst rated roads and bridges in the entire state.
Oh.
It's outrageous.
State, not the nation, but state.
The entire state. And so it's a major problem. If you look at it, it was 56% of our roads received a rating of either fair or poor. 48% of our bridges received a rating of fair or poor. These are all state operated, state maintained, state responsibility.
Scary.
It's terrible.
It is.
It's terrible. And so we've been pushing very hard for a full DOT capital plan to be fully funded in the budget. It's a big undertaking, but unfortunately, for years we've seen a systematic defunding or unfunding of our infrastructure. And whether you're driving through Carmel or Mayapack and you're going down Route 6, or you're over on 312 or 311, I was in Patterson over the weekend, and you come off of 84, and all of a sudden you're just swerving to avoid craters. And and I pick up the phone, and it's a Saturday, but I still call the regional director of DOT, and I'm like, hey, you got to get someone out here on 311. This is nuts. But the fact of the matter remains that we continue to be severely underfunded as a region. Region 8, which is the Hudson Valley, because we have the most miles of lane highway, we have the most bridges, and we have the highest ridership in the entire state. And yet our conditions report puts us dead last in the state. It doesn't add up.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. How's that allowed to happen? Is that
It
is
should
that
be
a
allowed to
political thing? Is that
So that's the dirty secret. I mean, unfortunately, there is no formula on how they fund infrastructure and specifically transportation in New York State. And so really it's a matter of the governor picking winners and losers and saying, I'm going to throw X amount of dollars over here. I'm going to throw X amount of dollars over there. Listen, we made some great progress last year with Route 52 in the hamlet of Carmel going into Kent. There was a story that in Kent, 52 hadn't been paved in God knows how long, right? To the point where they actually started paving 6, and then they picked up all their equipment. They drove through Kent and put it back down when they got to the Duchess line and kept paving. I mean, it's right, exactly. That's a true story. You can ask Richie Othmer from who's the highway superintendent over there. And so when I got elected, before I got elected, I said this needs to be a priority, and we have to figure out a way to get this done. And so we were able to get a $4 million investment last year to do the first half of Kent, Route 52, which really is a Carmel-Kent project. And we just got word about a week or two ago when I met with the DOT commissioner, the transportation commissioner, that they have now added in 2025, they're going to finish that corridor and fully pave all of Route 52. That's probably a 25 years in the making project. But that's where we need to spend our dollars if you're from the state's perspective, to make sure that we have safe roadways. Because if you have safe roadways, it's going to help our economic development growth. It's going to attract people to our region. And it's really important for all of our small business. I don't have to tell this guy since he sells cars every day, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, the only benefit to me is I sell tire and mill packages. Right. But yeah, I get it. I mean, even me as a motorcycle rider, there's certain areas I'm just not going to go.
Of course,
because I'm scared. I am. Yeah. So there's certain areas I just avoid because and there's places I want to ride, but I don't feel safe doing so.
Right.
But so again, thank you for working on that kind of stuff. It's amazing to me too how you could spread yourself so thin. How do you do it? Because you're at every event. I mean, every event I'm ever at, you're at, and then way more.
Well, let me just say I have an amazing wife. Number one,
that's important.
I would never be able to do any of this without her. Yeah. I don't make any type of decisions without her input and agreement. Whether it was running for town supervisor or running for the state assembly, I wouldn't have done it unless I had her full support. And so thankfully she supported me along this journey every step of the way. And I've got great kids. I've got 2 small children. I've got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. They get frustrated every once in a while, but they like to go on these adventures that we get to go on, and we're lucky enough to be able to live in a great place. And I try to make them all part of the entire process. And so they get to, meet new people and see cool things. And so we try to make it a family affair the best we can. But yeah, it's a lot. I mean, we're busy every day. We work 7 days a week. Right now we're in legislative session, so I'm spending half my week in Albany. And then I come home and I get to be dad, but I also get to run around the district and try to, my thing is I like to help. And that's where I want to really, we do a great job of constituent services. My staff in the district office in Brewster does a phenomenal job. And that's always our priority here at home, is making sure that for those people who need our help, that we can provide those types of services to them and direct them to where they can get their help.
Man, you really amaze me, because I think I can appreciate the difficulties that you have. I mean, here you are, you're a freshman, and you're wet behind the ears. And you're part of the minority party. I mean, how in the world do you get heard?
Well,
what are the practicalities of the job?
Yeah,
do you group up with other freshmen? Do you just speak louder than everybody else, or
sometimes
just be the squeaky wheel that you are?
Well, let me say that prior to being town supervisor, I was chief of staff for our state senator at the time, Terrence Murphy.
That's where you learned all your tricks.
And so I learned all my tricks from him. There's no doubt about that. And so I spent 4 years.
I don't mean to be disrespectful. They're not tricks.
No.
You learned how to get on.
Well, I learned how to navigate the craziness of Albany with him.
Yeah.
And he's a great friend and a great mentor. And I learned so much from him. I saw him this morning actually down in Yorktown. But so that helped, because obviously it provided a different, such great experience that a real freshman who is coming in, never been. Yeah. when I first got elected and we went up for freshman orientation, some of the guys have never even stepped into the Capitol building before.
Really?
Yeah. And so those are true freshmen.
They are wet behind
Yeah,
ears.
they're really wet behind the ears. But I think I think from my standpoint is I always try to find commonality with people, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't care. We don't have to agree on everything. And I'm not going to take offense to or be offensive to the fact that we don't agree on everything. But I'm going to find those 1 or 2 or 3 or sometimes 8 things that we agree on, and I'm going to work with you to make sure that we can accomplish it. And that's been my philosophy since I first got into government, since I was in town hall, and now I bring that to the state capitol. And I think that people recognize that aspect of my willingness to work with people, but at the same time, I'm not gonna bend the knee. And when I see things that are wrong, I'm going to stand up strong, and I'm going to make sure that our voice is heard and our region's voice is heard, and our values are well represented. And so I think that balance provides us with a unique opportunity to have a real impact on the process. And so far, like I said, it's been just an amazing honor to be a part of it, and to be the voice of the 94th Assembly District.
Tell us a little bit more about how things work. Do Republicans just meet with Republicans? Do Democrats just?
We do have minority and majority conferences. There's no doubt about it. But listen, at the end of the day, if I think I have a good idea, I'm going to go find somebody who can help me get it across the finish line. And I'll give you an example.
Please do.
I had a constituent of mine. Her husband was deployed overseas, Article 10 deployment, and he was boots in the ground in the Middle East. And she had I think at that time their child was 1. And her employer was denying her paid family leave. And her employer was saying, no, you have to burn all your sick, vacation, personal, and then we can talk about paid family leave. That's not what the law says. And so she came to me with it. We got involved. She was able to get her paid family leave while her husband was serving overseas, defending our freedoms. And now we have a bill that we introduced that says very clearly that if you are a military spouse with a spouse serving overseas, deployed, that you do qualify for paid family leave. Now, that type of bill needs the support of the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee, who is Kim Jean-Pierre. Assemblymember Jean-Pierre is a Democrat from Long Island. I don't care. I went up to her and I said, I have a great idea of a bill that's going to solve a real problem for our service members and, more importantly, their families. And she took it and she's introduced it, and we are partnering together on seeing that get through the process and hopefully get to the governor's desk by the end of the year to fix a problem that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
So that's just one example, and I can give I can spend hours talking about others that we've partnered with people on both sides of the aisle. But that's just one example of how we can get things done and how we can influence the process.
How many committees are there?
Too many to count.
I don't know.
Off the top of my head, I would have to say there's probably about 24 committees. And so when you put a bill in, your bill gets referred to a committee. That committee deliberates on the bill and they say this is either good or bad, or I wish it was just that simple. It's a little more complicated than that. But then they decide whether your bill can either advance either to the floor or to another committee for more vetting. And so I'm the ranker on the Libraries Committee. I am the minority leader of that committee. And so that's a very important committee for a lot of reasons. Most importantly, because of the impact that the libraries have in our communities. And so I meet with the committee, I meet with the chair. I just hosted librarians from all over the state of New York yesterday in the Capitol with NYLA, the New York Library Association. And we're fighting for full funding of public libraries across New York State. That's a very important priority of ours, which I think is greatly needed. But so there's all different types of committees. There's a Veterans Committee, Transportation. So the ones that I sit on, I am the ranker on the Libraries Committee. I sit on the Transportation Committee. I sit on the Government Operations Committee. I sit on the Labor Committee. I have a lot of experience with a lot of our building and construction trades, our teachers. I'm a former CSEA member when I used to work for Westchester County. So I deal a lot with labor issues for the state. And then I also sit on the Investigations Committee, which is a lot of fun because that's where you can really shine a light on important issues.
get on those committees?
You're assigned to them by leadership. So you say, hey, I'd like to
But you do have a chance to say,
Yeah.
I've done this, I've done
Yeah.
that, I'd be good for.
Right. You can put a kind of a ranking of what you prefer to be on, and you submit it to your leadership, and your leadership ultimately assigns you what committees you run
And you're
based on your experience.
You're satisfied with the assignments that you've got?
I've enjoyed every one immensely, but I've also grown since getting into the assembly last year, and I've started to have other issues pique my interest. So we'll see where we go from here.
Is it an annual process, the committee assignment?
It happens twice a year, whenever you go back in. So every 2 years you get reassigned.
I see. But you can make it known in that process that
Yes.
next time around, I'd like to be on this.
Yeah.
That sounds much more orderly than I would have given it credit for. Something.
I mean, I might make it sound more orderly than it actually is. It's usually controlled chaos up there. So that's what it really is. So, but yeah, I mean, one of the things that we keep talking about is housing, and
Yes,
housing in the Hudson
yes.
Valley, really important. When I was a town supervisor in Yorktown, we implemented a thing called an overlay district. We actually did 2 of them.
I think
Just for mixed use development, and we've got some great projects that came online because of that zoning upgrade. And so just delving into that based off of that experience, but also learning more from the state's perspective, what the priorities are. That may be something that I want to kind of dive deeper into, in the future. But we'll see. There's a lot of, like I said, the great thing about my job is every 15 minutes I'm having a different conversation about something.
Yeah.
you're the Energizer Bunny there, Matt.
Yeah, you have to have the mental flexibility to be able to have these types of conversations, retain the information, but also act on them. And that's the challenge that I really enjoy. And so we just throw ourselves into it every single day.
What happens to a freshman in terms of being given resources? Do you get nothing? Here's your half an office and half a person to help you?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a seniority pecking order when it comes to those things. And so, whether, you've got members who've been there for 30 years, obviously, seniority in that situation is going to be different than someone like myself as a freshman. But, I think that all comes with time and experience. And, the place has been running in a certain way for over 200 years. And, a lot of people say it hasn't changed in 200 years, and they may be right. But it's just phenomenal to sit on that floor and be in this historic chamber and make real decisions and impact people's lives every day.
What are some of the things that our listeners and us in this room can do to help you push across the things that you're working on?
Yeah.
Right
So
now?
I think be engaged. Make sure you're communicating to your representatives, whether in the state assembly, the state senate, or the governor's office, about what the issues are. One of the ones for the business community that I've been focused on this year and really last year, but more so this year, has been the unemployment interest surcharge that every employer is paying right now in New York State.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you guys know what it is, but for the listeners who don't, when the state went into COVID, we had an astronomical increase in unemployment benefit applications. We had to borrow money from the federal government, and we borrowed billions of dollars from the federal government. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the state never realized that there was an interest payment that came along with borrowing those dollars.
Sounds pretty simple, but
And
that would come.
Right? I mean, usually when you borrow, there's interest.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the state never accounted for that. And they spent all those federal dollars, never putting into a plan in place to deal with the interest side. So instead, they turned around and they've now implemented this unemployment insurance surcharge that is actually hitting every employer in the state. And when I had the labor commissioner in front of me for our budget hearing just 2 weeks ago, I asked, what's the plan to wrap this thing up? Because it's an unfunded mandate on our businesses. And with the cost, of everything these days, every unfunded mandate, it hurts businesses. But we have a $7.8 billion bill that we have to pay, and they are hopeful that by 2025 it would be paid down.
I'm down, not exhausted, but down.
She claimed that it would be zero, but as I was just going to say, the problem with Albany is once you have a tax in place, they'll never repeal it.
Mhm.
And so I'm very skeptical over the fact that by 2025 or when that bill is finally paid off, that the state will actually rescind that surcharge. Because as you can see with things like congestion pricing, they are in desperate need of money in every aspect that you can find. And so they would simply just shift it over from paying one bill to funding another project. And that's the danger of these types of programs.
And I know, speaking of the congestion pricing, I know you have been fighting, especially for our first responders and people that are living up here, working down in the city, to not have to deal with those charges. Is there any movement on that to try to get that done? I know it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it is going to be a tough one. For those who don't know, congestion pricing, they want to implement, if you're going below 60th Street in Manhattan, you'll be basically taxed $15 for every trip. I understand what the purpose is from an environmental standpoint and from a traffic congestion standpoint. I get it.
Yeah.
Fact of the matter remains, though, that you have people like many in the 94th Assembly District who are police officers, who are firefighters, who are essential employees, who work for New York City government, sanitation workers, for example, our nurses, our teachers, all who are simply going to work, and their place of business, their place of employment is below 60th Street. There is no exemption for those individuals.
I mean, they don't have to drive their car. They just have to work there.
No, because they have to drive their cars.
Oh, because they drive. Yeah. If they took the train, they wouldn't.
If they took the train, they wouldn't have to. But if you talk to most of them, they'll tell you why they don't take the train. And so
their hours are funny.
Exactly. And so they drive down, especially our police and our firefighters, our EMS, right? And simply because they're going to their station below 60th Street, they're going to get hit with a $15 per day tax. In reality, it's looking about $3,000 annually. And again, that all goes to fund the MTA, is where those dollars go. And the MTA chairman who was before us during the Transportation Commission made very clear that there were no exemptions, not for any of our first responders, not even for people who are disabled, who cannot take the train. And I've spoken with those folks as well. And they're very upset and concerned because they physically can't get on mass transit. They need to take a car, or they get driven in by paratransit to their appointments or wherever they need to go, and they will be charged. And so, it really makes it, I think, a difficult pill to swallow for especially our first responders and people in those conditions. And I think there should be exemptions at the very least.
Yeah.
Let alone my whole, philosophy and feeling about another tax for people who are simply just driving into the city. But considering the MTA's bloated budget and how they just mismanage their funds constantly, I think it's just a well-known fact that the MTA is probably one of the most mismanaged entities in the world, and the amount of money that they continue to, and by the way, there was a whole article in Newsday about the number of folks who were driving through the cashless toll system and not being charged. So the system that they're going to rely on isn't even a system that's proven to be efficient and effective in what they're trying to implement. And I asked that to the commissioner. He had no good answer. They were talking significant numbers that we're getting through. And I don't remember the exact monetary number off the top of my head. But there was no good answer about the system in place.
I just assume that I'm driving through and it's working. But maybe I'm not.
Listen, to the chairman's point, there are people who actually block their plates.
I know.
But you can't tell me you've got hundreds of thousands of people who are blocking their plates every week.
No, there's no way.
Because if you look at the Newsday article, the number was substantial.
Yeah, that's wild. And I have nothing but, I take Metro North, right? And I've taken it. Any MTA type of transportation, it doesn't seem like there's any improvements that are really happening there to make me want to feel comfortable for taking that, and to feel like people should take that for work.
Right, and that's the problem. And they cite to the fact that they have, capital improvement needs that are, tens of billions of dollars. But I just don't feel that we here in the Hudson Valley ever see those improvements. Now, I will say that there's a project going on over in the town of Southeast, which is great. But when you're on the actual train, right, as you said, I used to take Metro North all the time to go into the city. That was the only way I would go. But I think, you never see an improvement. You never, the fares continue to go up. And then you couple that with the crime situation down in New York City right now that continues to go on as we see. I just don't think people are incentivized to actually take mass transit, feeling that it's A, safe, or B, that they're getting their dollars worth. And so, I think there's a lot more that we need to do when it comes to the MTA to make sure that Hudson Valley families and Hudson Valley commuters are taken care of.
Yeah. So I mean, you're fighting for something that's statewide, but you're trying to bring it back here.
Always.
Yeah.
For me, it's always about bringing it back, right to our living room, right to our kitchen table, and understanding how it impacts everyday families, business owners, our school districts. That's where I think you have to drive it back home.
How much more time do we have to go on this budget? Or is that gonna go on months?
That's the
weeks?
That's the $235 billion question.
Yeah.
And that's the size of the budget right now. That's been proposed by Governor Hochul. The budget's due by April 1st. Last year we were late by 6 weeks because you had a lot of Democrats who wouldn't budge on important things like cashless bail reforms, and that held us up considerably. I'm not confident that it'll be an on-time budget, but then again, it's an election year, so you never know. Magic happens. So that may be an incentive enough to get it done on time, but it is due on April 1st.
So now what's going on? People are grouping up to get the governor's ear. I mean,
Oh yeah.
how does it work? How does that process of negotiation?
Yeah, the Capitol
work?
is packed with people these days, which is great to see, by the way, because we haven't seen this level of participation since before COVID. But so what happens right now? The governor puts out her budget, so she sets the mark on what her priorities are. So she proposed a $235 billion budget, and then the legislature holds these joint budget hearings, which are ongoing right now, based on committees and everything like that. And we examine the governor's proposal. Then you have the Assembly puts out a one-house budget, the Senate puts out a one-house budget. So now you got three, proposals, and then they all get grouped in, and you mix it all up, and whatever stays in, whatever falls out, falls out. But you need agreement by all three in order for it to move forward, and that's always the challenge.
I see. And then meantime, we've got all kinds of school people and library people
right.
and union people, just turning up and saying,
You've got hundreds, if not thousands, of special interest groups that come up and they say, schools, for example, the governor's proposal cuts school funding for more than 50% of the public schools in New York State, including schools here in Putnam County.
Yes.
Now, that's a big problem, a massive problem. And so, I went to public schools, my kids go to public schools. I think that it's important that we're making sure that we're providing the resources needed for our kids. And to that end, one of the initiatives that I've been championing since the first day I arrived in Albany is universal school meals for all of our kids. We're $77 million short when it comes to fully funding that program. The governor did not propose fully funding it in her budget, which was very disappointing. And she, again, cut funding for more than 50% of New York State schools. So that's a big fight. And so right now you've got a lot of posturing going on. How do you restore the dollars, so on and so forth. She proposed cutting $60 million from CHIPS, which is what our local town governments rely on to pave our local roads. And that's substantial. And so I know all of our local highway superintendents are going to be coming up to Albany. I think it's next week or the week after. We do a big CHIPS rally. We all wear our orange shirts. Local roads matter. And as a former local, town official, I'm right there with them in the mix. And so, important that we figure out that aspect, right? And then you get more complicated matters like Medicaid reimbursement rates and COLA adjustments for, some of our healthcare workers. There's really just, you can shake a stick at anything and you see the problems that we have, whether it's underfunding mental health services. I've been doing a lot of work when it comes to opioids and fentanyl. And so you talk to the providers there, there's real, structural underfunding there. And so everyone needs to come to the table and try to figure out how do we get there forward. But you also have to do it in a way that keeps New York State, well, I shouldn't say keeps, makes New York State affordable. Because if you look at the statistics, New York State led the nation in out-migration last year.
Yeah.
Again. And when you think about why, the number one reason is the affordability crisis that we're facing. And so, the cost of living in New York versus, according to statistics, basically anywhere else is vastly different. And so people are deciding to vote with their legs, and they're moving out to other states where they can afford to, retire, raise their family, open a business, and that hurts us all. And it kind of bring it back home. That hurts us here in Putnam County. That hurts us here in the Hudson Valley. Because all those people are, when they're leaving, they're taking their tax dollars with them.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, if people are moving out, that means business owners are moving out. Right. So
100%.
And that means customers are moving out for the business owners that are here. But I mean, thankfully, we have in this area with Putnam County, we have really resilient business owners.
Yeah.
And what we do such a great job of is preaching the small business owners and making sure people are focused on them and trying to keep them alive.
Right.
And we adapt very well, and we have been doing that for years. So thankfully we have somebody like yourself in Albany fighting for us to not have to pay these exorbitant amount of taxes,
right,
and to be able to stay in business and be able to stay to live here, because without that we have nothing.
Right.
So I mean, we can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing, and staying involved and listening to everybody. Like you said, I mean, it's partially up to us as business owners in this area to reach out to you and let us know what we're going through and what we need help with. But it's up to us as well to make sure that your word's getting out to the right people.
Yeah,
So,
if we don't know about a problem, we can't fix it.
of course.
Right. And so if there's things that are going on in the community, in your business, things that you feel that we should know about, I'd like to think that I've got a crystal ball and I can see everything, but I can't.
Yeah, of course.
So that's where the advocacy comes into play, and making sure that we're aware of what's happening, that we are aware of the impact that some of the policies and mandates that are coming out of Albany are impacting your individual business or your family, or the community as a whole. And that's where we're able to take that information and those testimonies, and we're able to turn it into action. I met this week with a number of childcare providers. Childcare is a major issue right now. Childcare is an essential service that keeps our economy moving, because if you don't have childcare, you can't go to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you that firsthand, because like I said, I got 2 kids, and the cost of childcare continues to go through the roof. And so, you talk to the childcare providers, though, they also provide a whole different perspective of how they can enhance childcare here in the Hudson Valley in a meaningful way, also recognizing the cost. And so it's a real, you're dealing with a multifaceted issue that you have to, kind of peel back like an onion to get to the root cause and to some of the solutions. And so, that's just, we wouldn't be able to do that without hearing from the people on the ground who are doing the work every single day.
How many people are on your staff? 2? 1?
4? 5.
And you could use 10, but you got
I can use 20. So
oh yeah, and keep them engaged.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, but we've got a great staff, like I said. My chief of staff, Kira Brunner's aces. I put her up against anybody. And she's a real boss.
Did she work with you before?
Yeah, she worked with me in town hall. When I was in town hall, she came and joined me in town hall. And so we've always had a great cohesion together, and I was very, very lucky that she agreed to come with me on this journey. She actually said no at first, and then she changed her mind.
I mean, if Nick needs to get a hold of you, I mean, he knows you, but
yeah.
What's the official channel? Just
our district office is up in Brewster, 3 Star Ridge Road. They can pop into the office. They can give us a call. They can email. There's so many ways to get in touch with us. Social media, people always hit me up on social media too. We're very active on social media. I try to email everyone back, but we're getting thousands of emails a day at this point with all the advocacy emails and letters that we get. And so, but we try our best. We try our best to respond to everybody and provide the constituent service level that that people come to expect.
And this is an election year for you?
Yes, sir.
I forget how it works. Is everybody on? Or is there some rotation, or
no,
the whole assembly's up?
Not just the assembly, the entire state legislature is up every 2 years per the Constitution. And so all 150 members of the assembly, all 63 members of the state senate, and then every 4 years the governor's up. So
That first year flew by, huh?
You're telling me.
That was quick.
Is there any interest or from time to time, somebody's going to suggest the term should be longer, right? Do they?
Hey,
or-
like I said before, the institution has worked a certain way for a very long time.
Why mess with it?
Even if you wanted to mess with it, doesn't mean you're going to succeed. So, even if it's term limits, something very simple like that, there were members of the legislature who've served for 50 years. 50 years.
Wow.
25 elections.
25 election cycles. I mean, listen, I appreciate institutional knowledge. But it gets to the point where if you're there for that long, you go in there with good intentions, as my good friend Senator Murphy used to say. You go in there with good intentions. You go in there to fix the problem, but after so many years, you become the problem, and that's where you see good solutions just get stopped by some of those senior members. So, but even things as simple as term limits die on the vine.
Well, I mean, a lot of things that you fight for in Albany, going into it that it's not going to happen over.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you understand that it's a battle for years to come, but you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. It's as I keep saying, it's a tough fight, but it's a fight worth fighting. And to make incremental improvements, it does take an awful lot of time. And you see bills that have been kicking around for 10, 15, 20 years. That people have been fighting for that long, and I think it's a tribute to them and their conviction to see it through. But that's part of the legislative process is getting it, and that's how long it can take to get meaningful change across the finish line. And I think it's safe to say here in New York and in Albany, we need real meaningful change in a lot of ways right now. But we're doing our best and we're fighting the fight, like I said, because it's a fight worth fighting. I want my kids to enjoy the same opportunities that I had growing up here, the same opportunities you had growing up here.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that, they have the ability to live here and go to school here and raise their families here and grow here. And, there's a lot of questions whether or not that's going to be feasible. But, that's why we fight this fight.
We applaud your service, Matt. Thank you for doing what you do for us and your public service and your energy and your enthusiasm. And I can't help but think that you got to get a little frustrated along the way, but you don't seem to let that bother you.
No, I always say that big ocean, small bottle, and I just keep bobbing along. Am I gonna get everything I want? Absolutely not.
Big ocean, small bottle.
But I still think that you can make a difference. Even that little bottle can make a difference.
That's
and
good,
so
man.
that's the mindset that we have every day, and we wake up ready to fight every day. And the problem I keep telling everyone, I like to play and I show up to play every day. That's the problem I have. And so,
we're lucky.
I'm very passionate.
We're lucky to have somebody as energetic as you and as dedicated as you.
I appreciate
Thank
that.
you for joining us on
No problem.
our podcast today.
Parker says it's time to go. So,
It's been great. Thank you so much.
It is.
And don't forget that we're a middleman to get a hold of you and get those issues to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're here to help in any way we can.
I appreciate that.
And who would have thought us going to high school together and now we're doing podcasts together?
That's it, man. Isn't that awesome? It's just incredible. But I appreciate all that you both do, and Jen, all that you do, and your advocacy is incredible. Your leadership's great. We held that great roundtable last year together,
good,
over in Southeast. And I think it's important that the business community knows that they do have people who are listening and acting on what they need. And I'm looking forward to.
We should have another one of those.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
You let me know. I'm all about it.
Okay.
Man, thanks again, man.
Thanks
Way
so
to go,
much.
Matt.
Appreciate it.
Bye, Matt. Thanks for coming.
No problem.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Voice of Putnam County Business. Let's hear a word from our sponsor. Thanks for tuning in to the Voice of Putnam County Business, brought to you by Putnam County Business Council. We are sponsored today by the Promenade on 6. Promenade on 6 is a small business hub that is set in an industrial, modern, contemporary space that is proudly showcasing all different kinds of small businesses. You have to check it out. Go to promenadeon6.com and you will get an idea of what Promenade on 6 is, and also brought to you by Park Ford. Park Ford is located right on Route 6 in Mayapack. If you are interested in purchasing a vehicle, you're going to reach out to Nick D'Andrea, 914-774-0036. But I can tell you that I have personally bought and sold, I think, about 5 vehicles with Park Ford. In fact, I have bought cars that are not Fords through them just for the fact that I don't want to deal with any other service department. These guys are world class, whether it comes to buying and selling vehicles or getting your vehicle serviced. Park Ford.